off the bat, I'd like to apologize for my mispronunciations of any names or anything like that. I have a hard time with Japanese names and the Japanese language, so once again, I apologize. Now, where do I begin with this exceptional manga? It all started when I went to my local manga store and was browsing through the library to choose a new series, something light and funny instead of the dark, twisted genres I've been reading as of late. I eventually came across Sundome, and majority of them were sealed, so I couldn't flip through the manga to see the artwork or even read what it was about because there is no synopsis on the back covers. This really piqued my interest even more, and so when I got home, I did a little research into what type of genre it was, and was surprised to have found a new genre called ecchi. Not knowing what that was, I went further into finding more about this type of manga, and soon enough, it became clear as day as to what it was all about and why it had explicit content warnings on the cover, and why all the volumes were sealed up in shrink wrap. Ecchi is borderline hentai, Japanese porn. It's not softcore and not quite hardcore, but after reading through the first volume, it really leans more towards hardcore than soft. I wasn't sure how I felt about reading something of this nature, but when I completed the series and read every volume, I was truly impressed. The storytelling really focused on the two main lead characters, Kuryumi and Aba. At the beginning, the story makes you think Kuryumi's main objective in this manga was to tease and torture Aba sexually, but towards the middle and especially at the end, it becomes clear that wasn't her main objective at all. For me, it felt like she wanted her last years to be special and to create a bond with somebody who truly meant a lot to the both of them. She wanted somebody she could rely on, teach physically and mentally, and someone who could comfort her and show her that good things are possible in this world. Yes, this is a sad series, but such comedic moments throughout make it such a joyous read. There are many moments throughout that plant dark seeds in our brains while reading it, such as the needle entry points, the constant absences from school by Kuryumi, etc. It becomes pretty obvious quickly where the story is heading, but the dark moments are always followed by some kind of prank, joke, or some kind of sheer stupidity on the part of some of the other characters in the story, such as Kayoko or the ex-president, which tend to lighten the mood. Even though the series revolves around Kuryumi and Aba, the supporting cast really came together nicely. All these characters have something in common. They're all a part of the same school club, the Roman Club. Basically, the club focuses on the study of UFOs and aliens, and is pretty much intended for otaku, but end up with a few sexy females thrown into the mix for dramatic and comedic flair. Katsun was really drawn completely unattractive, and even I felt sorry for the guy. Apart from that, the friendship he creates with Aba was nicely done, and even though there weren't too many deep conversations between the two, it seemed they just had an understanding of each other and just let things be. Katsun and Kayoko, on the other hand, was a great laugh to read. They were like cats and dogs throughout the series, but it made for a wonderful distraction from the Kuryumi and Aba sexual fetishes we are bombarded with. Kayoko's character really wasn't the greatest for me, but she served a purpose in the series, and as a whole she fit in. I just didn't care much for her. The ex-president and Tatsuya were the other two characters involved in the series, and I gotta tell you, they were hilarious. More so the ex-president. The ex-president has this huge anal fetish, and some things he gets himself into are just downright gut-busting funny. I couldn't stop laughing for a good few minutes. Tatsuya really wasn't any interest to me either, just like Kayoko, but once again, as a whole, he fit in well with the series, even with his creepy doll fetish. Now, I do have a few minor issues with this manga. We don't really get to see into the family lives of these characters very much at all. We get a few scenes with Aba's family and a few scenes of Kiryumi's, but that's about it. It frustrated me that things weren't explained in detail about Kiryumi's life and situation because I found myself becoming attached to the character. This can be forgiven. This can be forgiven though because of the length of the series. It's only 8 volumes long. But what I have a hard time swallowing was the ending. Vague. That is the only word to describe this ending. It left so many doors open for interpretation that depending on who you are, you will have a different outlook on what happened. Honestly, I was a little frustrated because I had invested quite a bit of time and money into this manga and was really hoping for a good, clear finale. After thinking about it for a few days, I've come to appreciate the subtle way it ended. And I actually enjoy the fact that the writer didn't spell it out for us and challenged the readers to think and create their own ending based on their own beliefs. The next important part of this manga I want to hit on is the artwork. It's extremely graphic sexually, but there's no violence or swearing to be seen throughout. For myself, this was a welcome change, seeing as I've been reading MPD Psycho and Oldboy. At first, I thought that the sexual drawings would take away from the story, but I have to admit it enhanced it for me. There's something about reading and looking at nudity that just brings you closer to the characters. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't turned on by this manga in any way at all, but seeing all these kids go through the experimental stage in life was very nostalgic for me. Sure, a lot of it was extreme, but a lot of it was also quite normal, at least here in Canada. The artwork was heavily detailed in these kind of shots, but occasionally we just get flashed with a panty shot here and there, just to tease the reader. This is the ecchi genre, so seeing breasts and panty shots are a given. Is the genre ecchi considered to be fan service though? Well, that's a whole topic in itself, but after reading my first ecchi series, I thought it was a well-balanced story, even with all the abundance of sexuality going on. I can't really comment too much on the technical aspect of the drawing because I'm not even a novice at drawing myself, or even know anything about it really. What I can say is that the art isn't heavily shaded. There isn't aggressive use of black at all like in other mangas such as Attack on Titan and Berserk. What I found there to be was a lot of Japanese symbols throughout the whole series, which I find in a lot of other manga, but it just seemed like a lot in this one. I found this unnecessary in Sundome because the drawing of the characters were well done to the point where just the picture alone conveyed enough for me to understand what the characters' emotions are. What I also enjoyed was the fact that the panels weren't cluttered. Everything was spacious and flowed perfectly well from panel to panel, page to page. My conclusion. The writer and artist Kuesuto Okada really hit a home run with this series. He was able to balance sex and heavy emotional content in a small amount of volumes. I can't recall any kind of filler here because with every volume something significant happens. Progress was always being made, and after reading the entirety of Sundome, I can safely say that this was one of the more enjoyable reads I've had in a while. The character development was well thought out, excluding most of their family lives and stuff like that, and I really felt a connection with all of them at some point, except maybe the ex-president and Tatsuya. Comedy in manga has been a challenge for me to find, and with this I got so much more than I thought I'd find. I could recommend this series based on the comedic factor alone, but the real reason you should read this is because it's such a real story that could easily happen to anyone. It might be a little extreme, but when we're kids and just growing up, sometimes we do extreme things. So I could definitely see people doing this kind of stuff in private. But it was nice to see it brought to the forefront and really kind of highlighted in a manga that we would not normally know about. So it's kind of weird fetishes in here and there, but I think it's pretty normal. Yes, this is a sad manga. I've said that before, and you may end up with a heavy heart afterwards. But the fact that Sundome could stir up those emotions in the first place makes me really proud to have this manga in my collection. So I highly recommend this. Please go out, find it, purchase it, or read it online, because this is a really truly great manga. Um, so thanks again for watching, everybody. Stay tuned for more, and please click the link below to check out my blog. Thank you very much.